Lots of things happening. Lots of things happening in the world of... One second. Good. Lots of things happening in the world of short-term rentals. Cities are banning you, businesses are getting shut down, and everything is going to But here's the deal. There are things you can do when your city shuts down your Airbnb business, and that's what we're gonna be talking about on today's episode of Raw Built. But to do that, I brought in my good friend Jesse Vasquez, who is the king of midterm rentals. These are stays that are typically 30 days or longer. So today we're gonna be talking about the Airbnb ban in Dallas and how you can pivot your short-term rental business into a midterm rental business. And we will get into it step by step, day by day. We'll get into this step by step, and we're gonna actually teach you how to build a medium-term rental business from the ground up. I know that I'm a little biased here, but I will say that if you're serious about shifting your Airbnb business, making it recession resistant, making it regulation resistant, this could be the most important and impactful video you've ever seen on the channel. So let's get into it. Jesse Vasquez, the midterm rental king, dubbed by everyone in the short-term rental community. Listen, there's a lot going on right now in the Dallas world and in the short-term rental world. Dallas just outlawed short-term rentals, banned them, and I wanted to bring you on because I think there are a lot of people freaking out. Regulation seems to stop a lot of people from getting into short-term rentals, which is fair. That's a fair thing to be nervous about because it is one of the more riskier asset classes in the real estate world. So for those of anyone at home that doesn't know about the Dallas situation, can you just give us like a quick 30-second recap of what happened?
Yeah, so Dallas regulated short-term rentals completely. It looks like they are going to be banned if you're in a residential market in Dallas. So if you're in a commercial building, if you have a residential property, you can't short-term rent there at all. I think this is actually going in effect in the next probably 3 months. I think it said by December. But there's people right now that are starting to panic because of the regulations that are happening, which rightly so. I mean, if I was in that market, I would probably be a little panicked myself. So yeah, they completely banned them. There's no way to get around it. The city just decided we're done. No more short-term rentals here, which sucks.
And the other thing about it is that even if you were a current short-term rental owner with a permit, you're not grandfathered in. You're also nixed.
Yep. Yeah, you're also ex-nade. You're on your own. You got to figure it out. And I think this is going to happen to a lot of states, a lot of cities, a lot of municipalities. I mean, I talked about this before, Rob. That happened in my market. Granted, I did fight with the city about it, but we can go into like things that people could do in order to kind of get ahead of the curve in those spots. Because this is part of evolving. This is where the short-term rental is going. This is municipalities that are starting to look at this now under different light. And we have to be able to adjust as operators, either on the short-term side, long-term rentals, midterm, short-term. We have to have different ways to pivot because what's worked in the past isn't necessarily going to work in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this happened to me as well in Los Angeles. I had short-term rentals running there. They banned them. I converted over to midterm rentals, and for the most part, I've actually done okay. I've cash flowed. I've been doing really well. But I want to ask you like an honest question, since you are the midterm rental guy. If this happened to you in like a city that you're in, right? I know this has happened before, but I'm saying like right now in your current portfolio in a city where you're operating a short-term rental, would you be scared if regulation came and locked out short-term rentals? You personally?
Yes, I would be a little bit scared right now if I wasn't running already. So like, granted, everybody's watching this. I've been doing this for 8 years. So it's not like I haven't been doing this. This is a long time if you think about it. So I've had a long roadway. But if I didn't pivot into something like this years ago, and this did happen today to me where I wasn't in the medium term or midterm space, I would 100% be nervous. Like this would be scary. Like
Yeah, okay.
Scary.
But you would not be scared, you personally, because you've been working on your book of business and your midterm rental contracts with agencies and everything for, you said 8 years?
8 years, yeah. Yeah, so now if this happened to me right now, which again, this did happen to me in one of my markets about a year and some change ago, we had cease and desist letters that were sent to us in the mail. And we basically had to stop operating the short-term rental immediately. And at that point, I just flipped into medium term, and we didn't like skip a beat. That's why I want everybody to think about like if you are in a market that's not regulated right now, it's in a gray area, because there is a gray area, right? There really is. There's municipalities that don't have short-term rentals. in place yet, Rob. You know that, like you're probably
Mhm.
operating too. There could be a potential and a possibility for you to get regulated. And if you don't have an exit strategy now and start thinking about that, or at least start filling gaps in with, going after local companies or connecting with agencies or even listing for 30 days at a time during slow season, you have to get your feet wet. And I think that that's a really, really important part, especially as far as pivoting goes.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about exit strategies because I think a lot of people go into short-term rentals and they're like, "This is my thing. I'm going to be an Airbnb person, and I don't have an exit strategy." So I wanted to kind of talk about what the different exit strategies, some things that you should keep in mind when you're running your numbers. And granted, it gets a lot tougher to do this in today's market with interest rates the way they are, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. So I would say probably first and foremost, the number one exit strategy if an Airbnb got regulated is probably a long-term rental. And that would just be, instead of hosting people for less than 28 days, you're basically now renting to a tenant for 12 months at a time. Have you ever had to pivot to that exit strategy, or have you always just stayed in the short-term, medium-term space?
Yeah, I've always stayed in the short term, medium term space. I don't have one long term rental at all. And I don't intend to be honest with
Yep.
you.
Sure.
I think that right now we've lived a really fantastic short-term rental life. Like if we talked, I talked about this on the show with Bigger Pockets with you. Like Airbnb short-term rentals have been around for a while. We're like in the seventh inning where there's still some more innings left. Like we're getting into experiential stays. Remember Airbnb Plus when that was around like 5 years ago? It
Mm-hmm.
kind of went through these different stages, and now I'm looking at it like what's next. They're kind of like going back to the beginning roots of, short-term rentals. You're sleeping on beds. Like now they're having room rentals or doing those kinds of things. So it's like we're almost evolving back to the very beginning. And the medium term space, I think, is going to draw more people to it. And also, long term rentals, Rob, I mean, it's hard to find even the 1% rule right now. You probably talk about
Yeah.
it on the BP show all the time. Like, it's hard to find that now. Like, there's not even, I think there was Bigger Pockets had an article I got an email, and there's only like 5 states that actually have
Wow.
1% that's still in effect. And I'm just like, well, how the heck is anybody supposed to make any money? And these are ways you have to do it, right? You have to be creative. You gotta think outside the box. So yeah, I have not had to long-term rent yet, and I think, you know, I've been lucky.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So, I mean, that is probably the lowest hanging fruit. Flip to a long term rental. That was a lot easier, probably when you were locking down interest rates at 3 or 4%. I think the second one is relatively obvious, and this would be selling your property. If you've had your property for a while now, you may have built up equity over the past, 1 to 10 years, however long you've owned it, right? So that's always going to be an option as well. That's what I like about the Airbnb model, where you actually buy property and you own it, because you can always just sell, and there's always a likelihood that you're going to make a profit from having operated that Airbnb. Whereas on the arbitrage side, you don't get that. So if you were regulated on the arbitrage side, I think your exit strategies are a lot less, right? So there's selling, there's flipping. So this would be, maybe the house needs a lot of work. Maybe you didn't fix it up before you put it on Airbnb, so you could actually invest money into a remodel and sell it for a much larger profit than just selling it outright. And
Totally.
I think the one that I want to talk to you about are midterm rentals. I think this is probably the most solid, and I know you probably think so too, but the most solid exit strategy, which isn't even an exit strategy. It's honestly more of an entry strategy into a very beautiful relationship with the short-term rental market. So for people that don't know at home, medium-term rentals are basically 30-day stays plus. I mean, a short-term rental really is 1 to 28 or 1 to 30 days at a time. It kind of depends on the municipality. So that basically means that you're going to be hosting 5 to 7 sets of guests every single month through Airbnb, through Vrbo, through direct booking websites, whatever it is. Medium-term rentals are 30 days stays plus, right? You might be hosting people 30, 60, 90 days at a time. I just hosted for someone for 180 days. I had a 6-month reservation. And the difference between a medium-term rental and a long-term rental is that a long-term rental, someone moves in, they furnish it themselves, they pay all the bills. A medium-term rental, you're the one that's furnishing it, you're the one that's paying all the bills. And because of that, you're charging a relatively large upcharge for doing so. Did I miss anything there?
No, that's exactly it. Just so everybody gets context of this, even the short term side, we make an exaggerated amount of money because we're willing to take a risk when most people are playing it safe by going after the 12-month leases. So like a long-term rental, you know that for 12 months your place is going to be booked, and that's why we make so much money on the short term and the medium term side, is because we're taking such a huge risk that that vacancy actually counts for more dollars. And I want people to realize that, because I get asked that question all the time, like why would I invest in that? Like, it doesn't make sense. Or how are you making so much money? It's because and you too, Rob, since you have short term and medium term, like you're risking the fact that you might not have people booking your place and you're going to have vacancy,
Right.
which is why we make more money on that side. So yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I think midterm rentals right now are kind of the sexy bad boy of real estate. It kind of all blew up over the past year. It's
Yeah.
funny because this isn't really all that new of a strategy. You've been doing it for a long time. I started doing it really before it got super popular with my LA properties. And the way that I was going out and getting my 30-day stays plus was I was basically just listing on Airbnb and putting a 50% discount on my short-term rental rate. And I
Yeah.
just found myself getting all these travel nurses and families staying at my properties. Vacancy is a very real thing. Sometimes I'll have a month-long vacancy. Sometimes I'll book a place for 6 months, have a 2-week vacancy, then have a 3-month reservation. But what I like about what I like about medium-term rentals is that the management is way less than a short-term rental. You know, I said you host 5 to 7 sets of guests every single month. One short-term rental, that means you're going to be hosting 60 to 72 people per year, groups of people. Medium-term rentals, you're going to be hosting basically 3 to 4, maybe 5, 6 sets of
Yeah.
people throughout the entire year. So I know your specialty is locking down midterm rental, I don't know, relationships, contracts with insurance agencies and hospitals. So I was hoping you could kind of give us a rundown on how, if someone got regulated in their market, they can no longer do short-term rentals. What's the first thing that they should do?
Yeah. So let's use Dallas. Everybody in Dallas right now, like, you guys are in panic mode, or if you're maybe not in panic mode,
I mean,
99.
probably. They are
Yeah.
probably in I think it's okay to say, and if you are in Dallas, I'm sorry. I know it is a panicking situation. I don't want to sugarcoat that. A lot of people bought Airbnbs for the sole reason to put them out there, rent them, make extra money, and now they're like, crap, what do I do? Because right now, I think if you try to sell a property that you just bought in the last 6 months, you're probably going to be a little upside down on selling it, is my guess. What do you think?
Oh, totally. And I feel like there's going to be a huge opportunity to buy property in Dallas, like residential property. We'll probably see the prices drop, Rob. Like, I mean, I was actually going to try to look to see how many short-term rentals are in Dallas right now. But if you think about, say even a quarter of those renting or selling, that's a huge opportunity for people to buy. But this is what I really want people to think about right now. So regulations hit, and that happened to you. You flipped, right, Rob? You flipped in the
Mm-hmm.
medium term space. You had to.
Mm-hmm.
There was no other route. And granted, Los Angeles had a ton of short-term rentals when that happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I would tell everybody right now is 99% of people are going to list on Airbnb, they're going to list on Verbo, they're going to list on Furnish Finder. That's 99% of people, and hope to get their place booked, because that's essentially what you're doing, is you're waiting for somebody to come to you. Now, what I did is I reverse engineered how I thought about that. I looked at who are the agencies, who are the companies, what type of structures in Dallas, what type of people come work there. So that's a larger metro area. So you have different avenues of, corporate companies. You have, there's an infrastructure bill that passed in the beginning of this year. There's probably infrastructure stuff happening. Corporate companies are doing construction all over the place in there. So there's a way to go after these engineers. There's a way to look at all these different companies that are hiring. And if you go on there's a website, and I wish I had it in front of me right now. If you type in government, like jobs in Dallas, or government, we'll have to, you know what I'm talking about, Rob? It's like, it'll basically show you a breakdown of what infrastructure or what
Oh, got it.
areas you're hiring. Do you know what that term is? What it's called? I don't know off the top of my
Mm-mm.
head.
I
But
don't.
anyway, maybe we'll put this in the show notes, so you can actually go there and see who's hiring, what cities, what kind of work is needed to be hired there. And this is through the government, so the government's actually posting these things. So you can look, like, is there companies hiring? Is there new construction happening? You can drive by these places, take pictures of the work trucks that are out there. Start thinking about this more of like, how do I get these businesses to want to work with me directly? And this is going to work especially if you have more than one property. And one of the cool things about medium-term space, Rob, like what I've been kind of preaching for a while now, is that collectively you're better. In the short-term industry, we're like, we want everybody to rent our place, right? Or like, I'm going to put this golf course in. I'm going to have this crazy thing. I want everybody to come to my place. In the medium term, the medium term space, or what I talk about is like, hey, band together with everybody that has property, so that when I go to this company, I now look like I have 300 properties or 100 properties or 50 properties, as opposed to just having one or two. So now, if my place is booked, I can now pass a property off to Rob. If Rob's place is booked, he can now pass a property off to Kevin. And then if Kevin's place is booked, he can now pass. So where it's like we're working together to help each other out. And I think that's where you get together with other operators in your markets and you start creating this almost like synergy, because you're better together than you are individuals. So it's like almost the opposite mindset than the short-term rental industry has been.
Yeah, it's the abundance mindset. There's enough for everybody out there, and I think I have tried to break the competitive mindset, because I teach Airbnb and short-term rentals on my channel. That's like obviously the main thing I talk about. Yeah. And a lot of people are always like dumbfounded that I teach this, and I teach it for free on the channel. Obviously, I have HostCamp, my mentorship program, which if you guys are interested in joining that, go to hostcamp.com. But that is for the more elevated, like you want to join my community, you want to be in a group of 2,000 people that want to learn and network and have a community with each other. But I teach like my best stuff on this channel on Raw Built, because I'm like, anybody can do this. I didn't have the Raw Built channel when I started, and I wish something like that existed, but now it exists, and I put it out there for free, and people are just always dumbfounded that I'm willing to do that. I'm like, well, I mean, that's I'm a content creator. That's what I do. I like to teach. I like to educate. So it sounds like midterm rentals are sort of kind of like that, where everybody does want to help each other and like help each other rise. And I'm not saying the short-term rental community isn't supportive. They totally are. Like, I think people just hold their cards a little bit closer to their chest. Host Camp, they're very open. Everyone shares with each other. I love that. But when you break outside of like strong knit communities, it is really tough to find people that are willing to just give you their numbers and their raw data, basically, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you've done that separates yourself from all the other, and the other folks or the gurus out there. I just did some air quotes for everybody that's listening to this, but it's community is everything, man. And I think that when you have a short-term rental group or even a medium-term rental group that's able to share networking things together, like that's what's going to keep people growing. And you're right, you do give stuff away for free. I'm the same way. Like, I think that anybody could do this. Like, if a guy that didn't graduate, I didn't graduate high school. Like, if an idiot like me didn't graduate high school and can build a 7-figure business, like, so can somebody that graduates high school and actually gets the basic diploma that everybody needs to get. Now I feel embarrassed that I'm talking about this in probably millions of people, but you know what?
No, I love it.
It's the reality. Like, it really is. That's the reality of it. And I think that you're empowering people, man. And I guarantee you get messages on a regular basis for like, Rob, thank you so much. Like, if it wasn't for your channel, I wasn't able to do this. And that's gold.
Makes my day, man. It makes my day. I get them all the time. It really weeds out all the haters that are like, your hair's stupid. Actually, no, those are nicer comments compared to some of the ones I get. But all right, so let's get into this. So, all right, if you're in Dallas or in a market that gets regulated, what is your first step to save your dying portfolio?
Yeah, number one is start looking at what your market is doing. And what I mean by that is, and we'll put this in the show notes, hopefully, Rob, the website that you can go look at. Go to Indeed.com and just type in like travel nursing, registered travel nurse. Go into Indeed.com and type in, construction work, and start calling these companies and saying like, hey, I have property here. Do you have travelers that are coming to this market right now? Are they staying in a hotel? If so, like, how many people are in those hotels? So let me give you a quick story on this. So the way that I realized this opportunity is, there was a Dave & Buster's that was being created in my market. They were building it, right? They were putting it together. Okay. And I drove by the Dave & Buster's and I took a picture of this work truck. It had plates from Indiana. And I called the company and I was like, hey, I just wanted to touch base with your HR department to find out if you guys, you guys are building a Dave & Buster's. Where are you guys staying? And the lady was like, she was on the phone. She was like, this guy's weird. Like, she was weird. But I was like, hey, like, I actually help companies save money through lodging. We have properties that, you could put 5 or 6, 7 people in and save you money. And I asked her where they were staying. They were staying at the DoubleTree Hotel, which is like the only nice hotel.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it was $220 a night. And they had 8 guys that were engineers that were working there. So what is that? 220 times 8. Are you good at math, Rob?
Okay, that's going to be roughly $1,700 a night if they're not sharing a room. They're
not sharing rooms. Yeah. So that's exactly what she told me. So I told her I have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. We'll rent it for $10K. I'm already saving that company what, $20,000-$30,000 just by having them stay together in one place. And she was like, yeah, totally, we're all about it. We want these guys to stay together. We're saving money. And I think that's where the most important part of this whole conversation is. You have to think about it like a business. How can I help Rob's business save money? How can I help Rob have a quality stay? How can I help Rob, have a streamlined accommodation where they're going to have everything they need to cook, clean? You know how it is, just like the short-term rental industry. Same concept. You want to make them comfortable. You want to have amenities for them. You want to have space for them to cook. And it's really just serving a purpose. Like, how can I solve a problem? And for me, the problem that I was solving was that they were spending too much money. These guys would rather be in one place together, because she talked about that. So it's just different ways of thinking about, businesses. And that was me just driving by a work site and taking a picture. If anybody has like extended stay hotels in their markets, or extended stay hotels, those are the companies that have corporate travel contracts. So these construction companies will connect with them. Go drive by there like a creeper at 7 o'clock at night and take pictures, Rob. Like, just take pictures of the work trucks that are out there. That's when these guys are back. They're getting ready to go to bed. Take pictures of the trucks and just make phone calls in the morning. That's like a really simple way to build a business, like relatively quick, by just connecting with a company.
See,
it's really
I don't want to gloss over that, because what you just said is so simple and most people won't do it.
All right, let's take a quick moment to pause here. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, Jesse Vasquez is a freaking genius at this, it's because he is, and that's why I've asked him to speak at HostCon 2.0. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to announce this. I've been working on this. My team has been working on this round the clock to bring you my short-term rental conference, the second round of it. We did the last one back in January. It was completely sold out, standing room only. We didn't have enough food. There's so many people there networking, partnering, doing all that kind of stuff. I'm excited to announce that on October 29th and 30th in Houston, Texas, HostCon is going down. I'm gonna have speakers like Jesse Vasquez talking about midterm rentals. I'm gonna have Avery Carl talking about recession-resistant vacation markets. Mark Simpson talking about building a direct booking business. Pace Morby will be there to teach you how to build a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio for $0 through creative financing. I've got the most insane industry titans and speakers lined up for HostCon. And the best part of it is you're gonna have me on stage teaching you how to do this short-term rental thing. So if you wanna be there and you wanna get in the room with hundreds of other short-term rental operators, then head on over to hostcon.com or click the link in the description down below. We got early bird pricing going on right now, so it is the best time to snag your ticket to HostCon in Houston, Texas. All right, back to the video.
Most people won't do it. They won't jump in their car, drive 10 minutes, because it requires effort, And I think that's where a lot of people will like throw in the towel very quickly with MTRs or midterm rentals. They'll list it on Airbnb. They're like, it's not working. This isn't going to work. But what you just said is a relatively simple process. So there's two things someone can do. They can either go to Indeed.com, type in travel nurse, and let's just use Houston as an example. If you type in travel nurse on Indeed, you'll see that, let's say, MD Anderson is hiring travel nurses. I don't know, for example. Mm-hmm. That's a job that's like hiring full-time travel nurse, MD Anderson. And then you see that they're hiring a bunch of travel nurses. So then you'd be like, okay, so MD Anderson is in need of more travel nurses. So then you would call MD Anderson and say, can I speak to the person that's in charge of travel housing or travel nurse housing? Or who would you ask for in that scenario?
Yep, that's exactly it. I'm actually on it right now, and there's literally 30 pages of companies that are hiring. So we'll look at this one right now, Therapeutic Invention Centers. So they're hiring a physical therapist. It's a travel physical therapist. They're paying them $240,000 a year.
Whoa.
And there's actually a recruiter's name that's on here. So not only am I able to go look to see who's hiring, I now have a specific person that I can call and say, hey, do you have housing, Mr. Recruiter, Mrs. Recruiter? Like, are you guys paying for the clinical staff to stay, or are they paying themselves? Because clinical staff will get per diem pay, and just so everybody knows, that per diem pay is typically untaxed. And a lot of times the travel nurses or this is a travel physical therapist job, occupational therapy job, they're not going to want to pay that much out of pocket, Rob. Then this is where you and I would be in the same boat. If you and I got tax-free money for lodging, basically lunch money, we're not going to spend that, right? I mean, go back to when you were a kid. We didn't spend our lunch money. We kept that in our pocket. Maybe we wouldn't buy stuff for our friends. Same concept. We're going after the agencies because they have more lunch money to spend than the clinicians or the occupational therapists. So we don't necessarily want the one-off nurses that are going to be booking their own place because they're going to want a cheaper place. We want to build the relationships with the company so that we can find accommodations that are helpful for them. we'll be the go-to person for them. So we weed out the middle person, which is the clinician individually looking. Plus, we don't want to charge them a lot anyway. We want the agencies that have the income to do this. And these are multi-million-dollar companies, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies
Wow.
are multi-million-dollar agencies.
All right, so I'm on Indeed. I typed in travel nurse, where Houston, Texas. Then it says new graduate registered nurse, and then under there, the name of the company is Pacer Staffing. So then I would go to Google, type in Pacer Staffing Houston, find out the phone number, call and say, hey, I saw your opening on Indeed. I actually help with accommodations for travel nurses because I know that it's really expensive to put them up in, extended stay hotels. I would love to work with, can I have some 5 minutes of your time to basically meet with you and kind of show you the properties that I have in Houston?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And I'd actually take that a little bit further, Rob. I would say, hey, Rob, who, this is going to sound weird, but just hear me out. Rob, do you have any other staff that you're sitting next to right now? And you would either be like, no, yeah, I mean, why is that? And say, I'm going to order you guys Panera. Do you mind if you and I jump on it, and me, you, and your staff jumps on a call tomorrow for 10 minutes? I'll actually order you guys Panera, and I'll go through my Rolodex with you. So now Rob is all of a sudden like, who the hell is this guy? He's going to order us lunch, and everybody next to me in my cubicle is now going to have lunch from Panera, which actually we'll make it Chipotle since it's your favorite place.
Thank you.
So we're switching over into Chipotle, so everybody can have diarrhea in that entire office. Maybe you know what? Maybe don't get Chipotle, guys. Maybe let's refrain.
Yeah, we'll get them the bowls.
There you go.
We'll cut the tortilla.
Exactly. So guess what I get, Rob? Now I'm getting the name of every single person that's sitting next to you. I might hopefully get their email address, and I get their information. Now I can go on LinkedIn. And look up Jim Smith is sitting next to you, and I can now look up Kevin Doherty. I think that's from a movie. I don't know what movie that is. That's Big Daddy, actually. Never mind. Big Daddy. So now you're looking up like these people, and now I've just out of one phone call, I'm able to connect with everybody. I'm able to get their emails, and I'm able to find them on LinkedIn. And guess what? They're not going to forget about me, Rob, because I gave them diarrhea for a day with Chipotle. Right?
It's hard to forget that, right?
Forget that.
You gave them die.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing is like, it's having unreasonable hospitality. And I got this from the book. I don't know if you guys read the book Unreasonable Hospitality. It just came out like 8 months ago. And he talks about, and this is a restaurant guy in New York City. He talks about doing things that people aren't necessarily used to getting. Like it's almost like you're giving them something without them expecting it. And that's exactly what's happening in this concept right now, Rob, is that we're like, now I'm giving you lunch. Nobody's going to think like that. Nobody's going to order you lunch. Nobody's going to order you Starbucks. So we're creating the atmosphere that we're wanting to build in. And that starts with something very simple as maybe buying lunch for 4 people and doing a 5-minute Zoom call.
$50, $75, $100. And in theory, you'll land a lead or they'll at least keep you in mind. Is it worth it to do this strategy if you only have one property? I just launched a property here in Houston, Texas. It's in Edo. So I think it's technically within the Med District. If I have the one property, is it worth it for me to still go all out like this? Because you were saying the more you have, the better.
Yeah, and I get to ask this question all the time. It's not. I would not worry about. I started with one. I have a ton of people that I know that start with one and they build. And again, collectively, you're together. Once you build your one midterm, you connect with other people in your market. You have more. But once you start, this is the great thing. And you know this, Rob. You're booked for 6 months. You're going to sit on your hands for 6 months. Like you're going to want to go pick up another property. You're going to want to use the fund. Hopefully, you're being smart about it, using those funds and reinvesting it back in the business so that you have 2 or 3. And that's how you snowball. It's the same thing that you're probably teaching in your course. It's the same concept. You're just building more. And the great thing about the medium term space is those clients are typically not, like, hey, my pillow's too soft, and it's not like that at all. One of the bathroom lights is burnt out. These folks will actually go buy a bathroom light,
right? Because they won't bother you for it.
Yeah, they won't. They're not going to bother you. They're almost like they live in the property. Like they live there.
They've accepted. They're like, all right, I guess this is it for the next 6 months. Yeah, this is nice, great. And then they bother you if something is like actually like an issue. So that approach seems really cool to me. So you go to Indeed, you just actually showed the process. I think this is really cool. So now step 2 would be, because it's not just like, you're not just doing that. You're basically doing that with everybody that shows up in Indeed.com. MedPro Staffing, Aya Healthcare, Favorite Healthcare Staffing, Voyage Healthcare. Those are just like 4 names the first 4 names that popped up. I'm basically hammering the phones with all of these guys, right? And I'm like, hey, Let me pitch you. Hey, let me pitch you. Hey, let me get you Panera. Hey, let me get you Qdoba. Now, see that would get them the die. But you're basically pitching all of these companies. What is your success rate with getting through? How often are people like, we don't want the lunch?
Yeah, well, it really just depends on, and this is where you have to build a muscle, right? Like you have to do reps, and this is where people will get stuck. Because I've had people that will watch, YouTube videos and be like, I called 3 people and it didn't work. Like, yeah, you got to call like 10x that. If you want to be successful, like you have to make 30 calls a week, like literally minimum 30 calls a week. And I know that sounds crazy and it's probably scary, and people will literally feel sick to their stomachs, like if they had a Chick-fil-A burrito. But but you got to put those
don't you talk about my Chipotle burritos, bro.
I know, I'm sorry. Maybe it's just me, man. I have a finicky stomach, but you have to just continue to make those calls. You have to continue to get out there. You have to learn about sales, because at the end of the day, this is about sales. This is about being able to listen to somebody, emphasize with them, be able to create a strategy, think about the things that are going to happen, and not go off a pitch. I think a lot of people now are like, what's the pitch that needs to happen? Like, you don't want to do a pitch. It sounds very generic and fake. Like, it needs to be an organic conversation where somebody shoots you a question and you don't have to go to a page and look at it. Like, you already know the business, you already know how this works. And I think that's what separates people from, that's like they're going back to this Rolodex. Like, what do I say after this? Like, you have to know the business.
Sure.
That makes sense at all.
It does. So can you run us through some of the other jobs or things that you would search on Indeed? We've got on the what at the top of Indeed, it says what, where. For the what, I put in travel nurse. Are there other terms that I might consider putting in there?
Yeah, so you can do occupational therapist. That's another really important one. So like folks in Dallas right now, like you're running into that. So occupational therapists are the clinical staff that helps people to like with mobility. So say somebody fell and broke their hip, like, Mom, I fell and I broke my hip kind of thing. Or what's that big 80s commercial, 90s commercial? I think
I've fallen and I can't get up.
There you go. She hits a little button. So somebody falls, they can't get up. So a therapist would actually go to these folks' homes and they would work with them with physical therapy, because they can't technically leave their house. So they're considered like homebound. So those occupational therapists, there's not a lot of them. So if you guys are looking for a career path, probably you might want to be an occupational therapist. But these companies or home health agencies are hiring these people all over the place. So folks are coming from all over the U.S. to come, work in these areas. So right now I'm looking at Young Senior Living, Agus Therapies. There's another one, Shift Key. That's a big company. They're looking for an occupational therapist. So you just call those companies and basically go run through the strategies and the scenarios we just talked about right now. So this is another route. Again, we're cool. Talking about the healthcare industry, right? But then you can also go and look at like, a tech company. So you can even type in, like tech agency, tech company, in Indeed search bar. So I'm going to do this right now as we're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
So tech company. So the tech companies will send people from all over. You guys know what digital nomads is. You know what that is, right, Rob?
Yeah. So that's the concept of basically you don't have a home wherever the job is, you can just do it remotely from anywhere.
Yep, exactly. So you would look for folks that are in those tech companies or in these companies that have, that are typically have people for 3 months, for a month, for 6 months at a time. So you look at tech companies, they'll hire people that will come in. What do you need? They need housing. So you connect with their HR department, just the same concept, the same thing that we talked about already. And you basically say, hey, I have housing. Do you folks hire, digital nomads or techs or engineers that come work here from out of the area? I can almost guarantee that they're going to say yes. And once they say yes, you say, okay, cool. Well, I have housing. I have my own properties, and I'm actually part of a network that has, a lot of other housing. Are you having any problems with your clinicians or your digital nomads or your engineers finding property? And they either say yay or nay, or, well, I want to be a solutions provider. Again, our goal is to what, Rob? Like, to serve them, right? We're wanting to serve these clients, serve these folks that are coming in. We want to make their jobs easier. So if a tech company is going to hire you, Rob, and they say, hey, we have housing, we have a company that we work with, here's what we pay every month, like, that's going to streamline you to want us to work with that company. That's what I want everybody to think about right now is, how do we make the job of this recruiter or this company easier for them to hire? Now they have accommodations, they have housing,
right?
They get pay. So it's like we're solving all these problems, and that's what I really want people to think about. Is what problems can I solve in my market?
So I like this idea with the tech company. Can we go one step deeper? Because I think a lot of people are, it sounds really good. Like, oh yeah, tech company, duh. How do you find the tech companies? Is there a step, like if I want to say, oh, I want to target tech companies, that's such a broad term, especially in Houston, Texas, like everything could be a tech company. So is there a strategy for finding tech companies?
Yeah, I mean, we have this beautiful thing called Google that's out right now, and
Hmm.
that's what we do. We'll literally go in and just
That's
type
a
in.
new thing, right?
It's very new. Yeah, it's just came out like a couple weeks ago. Google. But we'll just go in and we'll look at like these big companies like Alphabet, Samsung. I'm looking at Houston companies right now. This is why I'm doing this. Dell Technologies, Meta. Meta's out there. I mean, there's literally hundreds of tech companies, and this is where the more property you have, the better opportunity you're going to get with these
Sure.
bigger companies. Alphabet. I'm looking at this right now. Alphabet, which is a holding company for these tech companies. They're based out of Houston or out of Dallas. So now you call them and you say this company's worth $257 billion, massive. So they're hiring people from all over the world. Now, how do you niche down or niche down? I hate that word niche, by the way. Like, how do
Hmm.
we niche down and only help those folks? Like, we just Google them, we find out, we call the company, we see how they're doing housing. Do they have corporate housing set up? What do they do for the travelers? How often do they get travelers? Are they paying for their housing? Are they not paying for their housing? So there's a lot of questions you got to ask. You got to figure out how these companies are actually doing things. And right now it's just Google. I mean, just use simple Google things. Even colleges, like we've had teachers that have stayed at some of our properties, like Berkeley. So UC Berkeley, they'll have these travel like not I'm going to call them, they're not doctors. They're what are those professors? And
Yeah,
they'll travel
adjunct professors or something like that. Interim
exactly. They're
professors. Yeah.
Totally. They're staying for 3 to 6 months at a time for the school year. So they need somewhere to stay. So we'll actually have property where we'll talk to we talk to UC Berkeley and they'll send us clients. And it's just somebody in the HR department that will just pass our name to the folks that they hired. So
Cool.
it could be as simple as that. We only have 3 properties in Berkeley. So like that's not a bunch of them, right? But they're filled all the time.
All the
Um,
time.
it's just
Yeah.
thinking different.
So I just went into Google, that new tool you were talking about, and I
Yeah.
said big tech companies in Houston. Top 10, this came up. Top 10 Houston area employers: Walmart, Memorial Herman Health System, HEB, University of Texas MD Anderson, McDonald's Corp, Houston Methodist, Kroger, United Airlines. The thing is, those are some scary companies. So, can you actually get to the HR department of Walmart in Houston?
I don't know, Rob. Maybe we'll just do a live call right now. We'll try it out. Well, here's the beautiful thing is that if I can't get a hold of somebody, I can now go on LinkedIn and just type in, Houston, Texas, HR department. What place were we talking about right now?
Walmart. Walmart. How about that?
There we go. So now everybody that works at Walmart in the HR department, I can now find them on LinkedIn, which is like the professional Facebook, right? So then I just have to send out maybe 10, 20 emails or 10 phone calls. And now at least I found somebody. Now I can pick up the phone and dial somebody. And this is exactly what you talked about a minute ago, Rob. This is not easy, so people are always going to be shy away from it. But if you want to create something sustainable that has a long roadway to build, these are the things that you have to do. Like it's not going to be easy. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And maybe
That's true.
everybody will be doing it now. But I mean, I think that this is a different avenue. And I think that we have to be creative in times of adversity, which is happening in Dallas. We have to think outside the box.
Have you ever heard of the strategy where you mail a shoe to the HR director, and you leave a little card? When they open it, there's like a shoe, and the card says, "I just wanted to get my shoe in the door, or my shoe through the door," and it's a shoe.
I look,
That was a big advertising thing that we used to say. Like you send shoes to creative directors, and you say, "I just want to get my foot through the door."
did you really do that?
I never did it.
Okay.
It's one of those like talk like urban legends almost, like, oh, there's this guy that did and he got a job at the most prestigious ad agency. All right, so let's talk about LinkedIn strategy here because you brought that up. Are you just connecting with people for free, or are you on LinkedIn Premium and sending in-mails? And if so, is that worth it to pay for the LinkedIn Premium?
Yeah, I like LinkedIn Premium, and just so everybody knows, like when you send you're not if you don't have the Pro model, I sound like I'm an Apple rep. You don't have the Pro Max 14. If you don't have that, you don't have that updated version, it's not going to allow you to send a message directly to their inbox. Like they have to approve you as a friend. Like the whole part of LinkedIn is to be in network. Like you want to be in network with each other. So if you followed me on LinkedIn, you'd probably have all the networks that I have, which are travel, medical professionals, insurance companies. So Rob, get on there and follow me.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
doing it right now.
and you have to be like like, you have to be in their network in order to have that. And if you're not in their network and you have the Pro, you can send them a message directly. And again, it has to be something creative. It can't just be like, hey, I want to work with you, like blah 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 blah. Most people are going to delete those messages. I get those on a regular basis. Like you don't want to have that. But again, like we talked about a minute ago, where we get the names of somebody that we know works for a company, we can say, hey, My name's Rob or my name's Jesse. I just want to let you know I own a AirVenture hosting company, which is a agency that hosts, these travelers and whatnot. And I'm looking to actually partner with a few companies. Are you guys offering housing for your engineers or for your digital nomads or for your medical travelers? And it could be that simple of a conversation, but now you have their name. And I always recommend picking up the phone and dialing them. So send them a message on LinkedIn, and then pick up the phone and actually call them. And even if you have to leave a voicemail, you can do that. Like, it's just, I think there's something that's better about actually communicating over the phone. It gives you a lot more
Sure.
content. You can hear better. You can't decipher words through emails and stuff like that. So
All right. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to connect. I'll get the in-mail thing, like the premium LinkedIn. I thought I would never use this platform again because I quit my 9 to 5 and I was like, screw LinkedIn. But now I see that maybe it might benefit my short-term rental business a lot more than I thought. So we've got medical communities. We've got occupational staffing company, occupational therapist staffing companies. We've got construction. Is that something you would also put in Indeed, like construction worker? Or is that too broad?
I would do construction worker, engineers, or what else do we type in? Engineers are a really on the construction side. These guys travel all the time. Like we have a company called Gala Winery in my market, Rob. I don't know if I talked about this with you before. Gala Winery is this huge winery that has all these engineers that come from other countries. We got a contract with them where now our houses go to them if their folks are going to be staying,
Wow.
in the. So again, it's like that's another thing to think about. Like what kind of companies are going to have people stay or come from other countries? So if you're near big wineries, if you're near like big breweries, that are obviously large scale, like they have people that come from other countries to do work and to kind of even like ConAgra and these like big like corporate companies that do things like Monsanto, stuff like that. Like I want you guys to think about that. They have people that come from all over the world to work with them. So those are other things to look at. Again, these are large scale companies.
What about this? Since we're talking about Houston and you're talking about finding the things that that drive the economy in a city, the medical community is obviously a big economic driver for Houston, but so is oil and gas. So would I go to oil and gas staffing,
Yep.
Houston?
Yeah.
Would that be
Yeah.
a thing in Indeed? Or am I trying to find like the actual like position, like oil and gas HR?
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna real quick. There was a guy that was in one of my class, and Rob, he got a contract with a windmill company. Like this like they have windmills. He's out in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, literally rural Iowa or rural Michigan. And he got a contract with this company that they send these guys out to fix these huge windmills. And that's all he does now. And he has built this like 20 something units in one little rural market in Michigan and is just owning everything. He's 23 years old, man. So like I'm getting goosebumps talking about this right now because I don't know if you guys can see those or not, but
That's
probably
legit. Man, that's cool. 23, man.
yeah, and he's 23 years old and literally has a six-figure business so fast because he found the little niche. And again, like the more niche you can get in this space, the better it is. The likelihood of you succeeding is even greater. So anybody can do it, man. You just have to think outside the box and find the opportunities.
Yeah, so it's basically you really are just trying to find the big economic companies that drive a city. So in LA, for example, that might be Hollywood. Would that be like if you're in the LA market, would you be trying to hit up like casting agencies and all that kind of stuff to fill in like actors that might be flying home? Is that a strategy or would that be too like high level?
I think that would work totally fine. I do think that the higher level properties would probably work better there. The
Yeah,
higher
sure.
properties. Because again, we're talking about niching things down. We're talking about niching into like a specific type of group and only serving those clients. So yeah, I mean that works. There's people in Atlanta that do that. They have a huge business doing that, and Atlanta is regulated with short-term rental. That you can't short-term rent there anymore either. So a lot of people migrated this, and I know people that are doing extremely well on that end. That are housing folks that are in the entertainment industry.
So the last question I want to ask you before we wrap here is you're talking about places like construction crews and stuff like that. Wouldn't the construction workers be living in the city, thus not needing housing?
No, like I think a lot of people think that, and this is why I'm going back to the infrastructure, and we're looking at specific type of quality. And I'm not going to say quality, like specific engineers or specific people that work with these companies. Like I was telling you, the folks that did the what would I say, that Dave and Buster's. Like I thought Dave and Buster's would be local people, but they hire people that come from out of state to come do these things because they're only working on these specific parts of the jobs for whether that's engineering or whatnot. They do it for a certain amount of time. So big companies will do this. They'll hire these people to come fly out and stay for 3 6 months at a time to get that job done. That happens all the time. Project managers will come from different areas to work with on these projects because that's what they do. They literally hire these people. So yeah, again, it's just thinking outside the box and really thinking about how can I serve. And again, better you just pick up the phone and dial them. I know that I might sound crazy. It's not, and it might seem a little weird to drive by a place and take a picture, or even see a new construction happening. You take a picture of a work truck out there and you just connect with them. But we've had people that drive, even hours at a time, Rob. Well, they'll book our properties, say Monday through Friday, go home for the weekend, come back, and they do the same grind over and over and over again. That's another thing that we see on a regular basis. And again, these are like rural markets. Like San Francisco is 2 hours from us. We have folks that will come from the Bay, come stay down here for, 5 days out of the week, go back home, stay down here 5 days a week. And they're doing these projects for, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks at a time. So that fills in a lot of the gaps that we have during the weekday, which is a lot of short-term rental, folks have those issues. So again, it's just thinking outside the box. How do we maximize the opportunities to fill and help these folks that are having issues?
That's interesting because I think the interesting thing is once you get really good at this, you can actually start buying your properties once you sort of know that the company is going to use you. So I'll pitch you something here on air. So you basically have to say yes. But I used to rent my parents' house on Airbnb in Pasadena, Texas, which is not really a very desirable part of town per se. It's fine, but it's like really close to refineries. Like all the refineries in the Houston area, they're in Pasadena. So I would rent their house not thinking it was going to book because it's just like a small little town next to refineries. And we kept getting bookings from oil rig people that were like in town for that job. And so my pitch to you is, what if we found like a multifamily commercial building in Pasadena and we just locked down like a contract with all of the, there are like so many refineries there. That to me seems like that'd be like a slam dunk strategy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. It could be an oil refinery. It could be a windmill turbine company. It could be a nuclear power plant. It's like, and we all have these in certain spaces. So yeah, Rob, if there's a 20-unit building, I am 100% down. And the cool thing about this is we can do it backwards. We can actually go to those companies now and say, hey, we're looking at what this looks like right now. We see the economic opportunities for you guys, the growth and expansion. Where does your company look to go in the next 5 years? We actually get to grab that information from them and say, okay, how many people do you have traveling monthly? How many people do you have traveling yearly? Is that expected to grow over time? Is this something that's going to continue to happen? Do you see your 2023, 2024 expansion in the space? So we're now taking assets that we can buy and buy them when we already have contracts and things put in place. So
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like you can reverse engineer the midterm rental strategy where instead of buying it and then finding the contract, you get you get a good rapport with the company that makes you feel good about going and buying this, riskier property. But then again, if it's a 20 unit, it would probably work as a long-term rental anyway. So you can just sort of supercharge the returns by putting short-term and midterm rental. Because I think that's like the best model is to have like a 20 unit, 30 unit place, and it's a third, and a third, and you just have like a very dynamic, diverse set of tenants, guests, roommates, whatever you want to call it, inside that building.
Smartest move, and I think more people are going to start doing this. I think that we're going to have to get creative, in like 2024 or 2025. It's going to be harder to find deals. We're seeing that now. And I do think this is kind of like the wave of where, smart money's been doing this for a while. So it's like for us now, small independent operators, think outside the box. We create these relationships. So we can, Rob, you and I can get a contract and then literally probably raise capital in like 2 days because the net operating income is going to 2x or 3x what it would be traditionally.
Immediately. Yeah.
All right. Imagine in a year we could sell that for way more than we even got it for because it's already operating as a business with a contract. Plus the banks are going to loan us money based off of the LOI, right? The letter of intent. So it's like, man, it's a good move.
Well, I think we found it. Let's do it, man. I'm excited. Thank you so much for everyone at home. I texted Jesse like 2 hours ago. I was like, you want to do a podcast for my channel? He was like, yeah, send me a link. And then we we didn't really talk about what we were going to talk about until like, he was like, what are we talking about? I was like, short-term rentals getting banned in Dallas and how people can pivot. So thank you for bringing that. If people want to learn about you, connect with you, do all that kind of stuff, how can they learn more about you?
Yeah, head over to my Instagram at the real Jesse Vasquez. You can find me there, or here on YouTube at the real Jesse Vasquez too. So yeah, man, I appreciate it. Last minute impromptu conversation about Chipotle burritos, but hey, I'm in.
Yeah, and then an impromptu pitch to go buy a 20 unit in Pasadena, Texas, a place where most people probably wouldn't, think about investing. But here we are, crazy Latinos. That's what we do.
Crazy Latinos buying stuff besides
Awesome.
burrito.
Just a quick final plug here. Thanks for watching today's episode of Raw Built. A little bit different, a little bit longer, but hopefully you learned something. And remember, Jesse Vasquez is going to be speaking at HostCon in Houston, Texas, October 29th and 30th. It's my short-term rental conference. Click that link down below to get your early bird tickets, and I will see you at HostCon. So excited to meet you guys. All right, bye.